Chapter 1. Sevilla Institute for the Mentally Ill, Sevilla, Spain. The passage from freedom to incarceration is never an easy one. The passage from an unacknowledged, untested sanity to a diagnosed insanity is equally problematic. The first time nurse Consuela Emma Lopez entered his world, it was with nervousness, with the trepidation of a sparrow pecking the ground a few meters in front of a perfectly motionless cat. He was immobile on a bed in the admitting area, restrained and drugged. He'd arrived at the institute kicking and screaming. Consuela heard the shouting, wondered who it was and what it was that had him so upset. She could have written this off as just another ugly and loud admittance in a long string of ugly and loud admittances, but the sound of someone in pain or distress always gets through to her heart. The sound of this man's voice caused her to pause, to look up from her work and ache a little. The timbre of this particular voice vibrated in her. She cared immediately. This is not something she likes about herself. Not that there's anything wrong with caring. It's a good quality for a nurse. It's just that she wishes she were tougher, more thick-skinned. Consuela almost tiptoes into the room, silently but not so timidly as to suggest she is uncomfortable in the admitting room. The lights have been dimmed and a curtain drawn around his bed. They've drugged him, she thinks, and they're waiting for the drugs to kick in. She peeks through a slit in the curtain. It's difficult to say how old he is, but she would guess 35, maybe 38, despite the graying verging on white hair. He has a kind, narrow face, but he's obviously been through something, some sort of trying experience, an ordeal of some kind. There are bags under his eyes, and there are scratches, some deeper than others, across his forehead. His jaw has been bandaged. Consuela finds his chart hanging on the far wall. She flips it open and finds an exercise in ambiguity, scant details about where he was found, the words Strait of Gibraltar and Palos. No name, a notation on the sedative he'd been given, a hefty dose of rohypnol, and a number. Nurses talk. They tell stories at coffee. 2 hours earlier, a black van had arrived and out climbed 3 members of the National Police Force with the new patient wedged between them. They delivered him, wrapped tightly in a straitjacket, to the admitting area. His clothes were blood-stained, his shirt ripped. Despite the restraints, he was wild. He'd broken the nose of one of the policemen with a lurching headbutt to the face. They'd said something about his name being Bolivar, and that he'd been found in the Strait of Gibraltar. "In the strait?" a nurse asks. "Surely you mean near the strait." The policeman looked at her with dehumanizing, flat disdain, signed the papers that were thrust toward him, dropped the pen on the counter, and departed quickly. It seemed that the transport and handoff of this patient had been a trying experience for these men. They were glad to be rid of him. Consuela saw them as they were leaving, remembers thinking they were very serious, severe. If they'd had clowns in both pockets of their trousers, they wouldn't have smiled. They reminded her of her ex, the black stiff uniforms, those intensely earnest faces, the type that follows orders unquestioningly. When Bolivar opens his eyes 2 days later, he is calm and seems rational. He's restrained in the bed, and there is still one policeman outside in the hallway, just in case. The guard sits straight in a wooden chair to the left of the door. He checks identification badges of everyone who enters, makes a note on his clipboard. This is Consuela's 5th time in, and the guard barely looks at her. "¿Qué día es este? Por favor." The new patient stares at Consuela. His voice is demanding, almost commanding. It's a voice that is perhaps used to giving orders. His head is lifted, and he's trying to see what it is that's keeping him down in the bed. "¿Qué? ¿Qué día es este? What day is it?" "It is Sunday," Consuela says. "Sunday. What date?" He pulls at his wrist restraints, still checking. "Sunday, the 4th day of April." "April? You mean August. Where am I?" He flexes against the ankle restraints. "Sevilla? How did I get here? What happened to me?" "You were brought here—" She stops. What exactly can she tell him? She's not sure. "I was in Palos. It all went sideways. There were 2 girls. Are they all right? Everything went horribly wrong." But his voice trails off as if he is